Good to see. Oh, there's Hugh. I don't see Stephanie yet. Adam's here.
Over here. Who's in charge of herding the masses?
Again, but it's the chemicals. It's chemicals. And that's why I do smoke tobacco, but I smoke organic tobacco. And it's because there's 454. Right.
I have my gum, I have my patch.
So tell, if you don't mind for the cameras, how many fewer oxys are you on, opiate-based pills, are you on since you started regularly giving yourself cannabis?
Same thing. That's one of the things that's kept that at a very low dose for. I became a patient in 2006.
So you haven't had to increase the oxy because
Not
you
at all.
continued the cannabis.
I've been, and I know the degeneration is not only that, the arthritis could hit my bones too and stuff down there. It's not just big blown black, ugly, rotting disc anymore, which has gotten shorter. But I got a bunch of arthritis in there now too. So, but it has kept that dose. And I put on some weight too since, so went through the change, and no, it's kept it right there. Now, if I had concentrates every day and had access to them, like cold water extract, for example, I would give it a shot to see if I could maybe go off of those even.
But you can't get enough.
Not
meds
at
right
this
now.
point, no, not at this point in my life.
If you could grow 15 or more plants, would that work for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because it takes that much just to make any kind of extract. It takes a lot. And cold water is no exception. It takes a lot. So, yeah. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I'm absolutely stunned.
What are your fellow patients who you talk to, if they know of your chosen herb? What are they saying about this if they're not here today?
They're all very angry. They're all very frightened, I think, actually, deep down. Aside from just being angry, everybody's kind of scared now, Nobody wants to, we're all just, are we going to be targeted? What's going to happen? I don't get out a lot, but I stay in contact with my fellow patients, online, and I've really thought about, just going home and delete and start all over again with some kind of goofy alias, which is really kind of stupid because I shouldn't have to do that. I've been a patient since October of 2006.
How did you come to cannabis, may I ask?
Well, I smoked it when I was younger. I found out it had been used as an ancient medicine. One time when I was in my late teens, I was homesick with some kind of crap that had me throwing up a lot. And it was also really boring to be home and just having to throw up, so I decided to go see if I could take a hit, and I did. And it stopped me throwing up. And I was like, wow. So I asked some of my friends about it, and they said, oh, absolutely, you didn't know that? And I was like, no. And so it's good stuff. It's an anti-inflammatory big time. In neuro, it's incredible. It's a protectant. And it also will help new brain cells form. It interacts with our own human endocannabinoid system. That's why it works, which all mammals have, including humans.
Do you have any particular strains that you use for your various different health concerns?
I only have one strain, It's a hybrid. Uh, it's called Mad Shack.
Mad,
Mad Shack.
Mad Shack.
And it was a mad scientist, which was a white widow and a marijuana. It was Oregon's Cannabis Cup winner a few years back, and mixed with a fellow in the Netherlands owned one called Shackzilla. And it's a very good producer. It has little to no odor whatsoever, even when bloom. And it produces a lot. And it works for my back. And so, but I would like to, once I get out of my small living quarters, if I can save a little bit here and there, I'd like to get another strain or two, so that, 'cause it would be better, because there are times where, in spite of it, I have to go lay down for a while.
Do you vaporize, or how do you?
Yes, I do
typically-
vaporize. I primarily smoke. It was supposed to be a deal with myself that if I quit smoking cigarettes, I could smoke all the weed I wanted. But with this going on, all bets are off for a day or two at least. We'll work on it. My
it separated.
medical records are
The kids are
private.
going to see the adults doing it, think it's fine.
Well, because you teach them what cannabis is
Thank
and
you.
how it should be used.
It doesn't
And-
work.
Oh, bullshit.
You know that.
It does.
It does.
I'm a
If you
kid-
start
I'm a
young
kid of the
and you're
60s.
honest with your kids, which I was, and neither of my kids, my daughter, for all I know, still hasn't ever tried cannabis. My son has. He tried it when he was in high school and he didn't like it because he got paranoid. But then after he got in his 20s, he tried it again and he really liked it. He said it was great for relaxing after work. It was way better than having a cocktail. So,
Certainly.
yeah, and I encourage that, but the law doesn't, really. I mean, it sort of does now for people in their own home, recreational, okay, fine. But medical patients are an entirely different thing. And they have rights to privacy. And they should not be singled out because they're using cannabis as a medicine. And it's no different than any other medicine. And those records should be private. A registry with your photo, and what are they gonna do? Give us a little chip or a tattoo or something maybe at some point? Or, I don't know. You know what I mean? This is just not acceptable. It's an outrage. It's an absolute insult. It's worse than being spit in the face on. My back kicks ass, and in last year I just can't travel as well. There's just no way. Even 3 years ago, I can't travel nearly as well as 3 years ago. So I stay home a lot. I do go visit a friend now and again, but even grocery shopping for me is kind of rough on me now. So, but and my income is pretty low, very low actually.
How old are you,
Extremely
may I
low.
ask?
I'm 55. I'll be 56 this November.
Do you consume alcohol as a method of pain relief?
Absolutely not.
You don't mix the two,
Absolutely not.
because one negates the other.
Not with the other medications I take and all things. Absolutely not. No.
Thank you.
I'm like I usually find out 1 month ahead of time what they're going through. They know what they're doing.
Oh, the handouts, the changes in the rules.
But it worked in this case for about. Yeah. How would that?
Let's turn it to the abortion debate if we want to go there. And let's turn it to early Planned Parenthood, which is not about still performance.
Lost patients with hypergonadism.
You could give yeah, if they really cared, why wouldn't they? Hey, how you doing?
It's 35 grams, but you get it for 17.50. That's actually 2 business. When I went around and said, "You're sick and tired of people bullshitting."
You'll get the veteran price at $10 a gram, and every day when you go in there, you don't even have to buy them. They'll give you an ounce a month for every gram a day. Every day walking around, he kept me alive with RSO. When I came back from the war after my 5th tour in Afghanistan, that's the one I knew I could do everything wrong with. I should have stopped while I was, I should quit. You can't stop. No, so you got to do it because nobody else can. That's what you think anyway. But that it kept me alive with it. Free joint. I went there 2 months ago. I went there and I said, I'm the bad one. They said, here, take these. Take these at night. Take these all day. Gave me a little penny or something. Next day, gave me a number on a little box. Got a text, 2 cartridges.
Please introduce us. Please introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Jedediah Haney, and this is Courtney Braswell. We helped out with the group called 22 Too Many what was it, Wednesday, so that's 2 days ago. We met right here at the steps and announced that today is the first day in Washington State that anybody with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury can now go get medical cannabis. It's a qualifying condition. It's today. Today's Friday. That's Patrick. Patrick, come here. Patrick's actually probably the first. You are number 1, right?
Right here.
Number 1. This is number 1 authorization with post-traumatic stress, and right across from that is TBI, the check box for TBI, and it's the first time in Washington State.
Did you have resistance from your physician, Patrick, or your prescriber?
No, I don't want to get her in trouble, but she was eager to get this to me first thing this morning. She's very proud of me. Yeah, she wanted me to have this. The sad thing about this new form is that you get to carry around and give to all the collectives in town a piece of paper that says what you have. So she works with a lot of AIDS patients that get to go around with a piece of paper that says they have AIDS on it and hand that to people. There's no privacy with this form.
There's no HIPAA compliance in that whatsoever at all.
None. So, I want people to know what I have it for, but other people don't, so it's pretty sad.
What have been your other typical ways until you came to cannabis for coping?
I've been using cannabis my whole life. The time where I came closest to taking my life was in Las Vegas, and just so happens that during that time of my life I was heavy use of cannabis there, and I think inadvertently it saved my life. I couldn't say for sure, but I didn't do it.
Have you come off of any other prescription drugs?
Absolutely. I was on all sorts of painkillers, OxyContin, Vicodin, abusing it. I got in a car accident and hurt my back, started abusing painkillers, and man, they just turned me into a zombie. I was no good I have 3 beautiful children that I just wasn't present for them. Now I am.
So are you totally off of most all of the prescription drugs?
Yes, I take 1 prescription drug from the VA, and cannabis are the only 2 things that I take. They've tried to supplement me with some things for my nightmares. the VA, but they don't work. They made my dreams more vivid. Mostly my dreams are in black and white. When I took this medication, it just made my dreams color. So I stopped, shelved that right away, and just went back to cannabis. Me and Ruby Slippers, she's high in this industry with, not high in this industry, but she's big in this industry.
She's well known.
In
Very
the
well known
CBD
for
field.
CBDs.
Topicals, capsules, teas, you name it, she makes it. So I collaborated with her about a year ago, talking to her about the 22 veteran suicides, and that we just got to provide something like a security blanket for our veterans. So instead of putting a pistol in their mouth or taking a bottle of pills, they'll have this vapor pen that they can use day and night. So we came up with the PTSP pen, post-traumatic stress pen. Right now, between 28 and 30 veterans have them. They get a daytime cartridge and a nighttime cartridge, a pen and a charger for free, and all I ask that they give me in return is a diary of when they take it, how often they take it, why they take it, at night, during the day, and then now all of a sudden I'm collecting case studies, you know, and there's not enough studies out there on cannabis, so why not? It'll only be an observational case study, but still a study.
Which is the only studies that we can do, actually. We've learned now that we have in Washington State a research license to dedicate canopy to university use. We've now investigated that as a group, and we've learned that there's huge barriers with FDA. In fact, there's an international treaty that the United States has signed that actually interferes with the application of real research. So right now what we can do is observational, and what Patrick and Rainier Express and the group of veterans have done is they've started the precursor of that observational study by supplying these journals and those cartridges and pens to 20 plus veterans that are now having major success with that and recording their daily activity and success with that.
I have Vietnam era vets coming, you know, big burly vets coming to me in tears saying that those pens have changed their life, given their lives back, to quote.
What branches were both of you in, may I ask?
I was in the United States Marine Corps. Yep.
And I did not serve, but I definitely have family members that did, and this is a issue that's dear to my heart, and I bravely serve with honor with these veterans next to me, because this is a huge, important issue. It's a national crisis.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Who are writing your recommendations have to be writing them full time out of their main practicing office, which is going to interfere with a lot of the pre-existing cannabis authorization places that we would go up until this point to get our authorizations. So I've been told that Advanced Holistic Health and other Green Wellness.
No?
The Hope Clinics is going to still be around, but a lot of those places have not changed their model to be compliant with this new schedule of how to do it.
Will there be a specific identification?
Yes, so going along with that, healthcare practitioners who write over 30 authorizations in 1 month have to be listed. So if they are specifically writing medical marijuana authorizations after their 30th authorization, they go on a list. So that's one of the changes.
Doctors go on a list, prescribers go on a list.
The doctors go on a list. And then they're also writing recommendations from a uniform document. That's a recommendation, so every single patient will have the same looking medical authorization issued by the Department of Health to these healthcare practitioners.
Do we have an idea what's going to happen to that list of doctors who have written more than 30 recommendations a month?
No.
We're not getting good answers about that.
Not at this time.
What was the question?
We wanted to know what's going to happen with the doctors when their names are turned into the state.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'll explain it in a moment, but they'll get investigated by MQuack. I had done in the past medically defensible medical cannabis authorizations. I spent an hour with the patients. Because anybody look at my authorizations is going to know I'm going to fly across the country from my home in Springfield and defend them here where I wrote their authorization. But in doing that, I got 2 complaints over the few years I did it. They looked into it, and it's not fun being drugged before MQuack. They immediately threw them out when they saw my 4-page, hour-long evaluations. But it's not fun being pulled through when you get a complaint. And that's going to be a complaint where they're going to come in and do a thorough chart review on any practitioner that is on that list. Trust me, and it's not a fun process. Anybody who's crazy or got a death wish to do over 30 and subject themselves to at least MQAC. I don't know about the nurse practitioners, but I do know that the DO arm of MQAC is totally intolerant of any physicians writing medical cannabis.
Thank you, Doctor.
That's what's going to happen.
So we're not going to have any physicians in a year from now writing any prescriptions then?
Not any, not physicians writing prescriptions, not any with the health system like Kaiser Permanente. They're not going to allow it. That's exactly right.
So it sounds like we're going to have a bunch of qualified patients who aren't going to be able to get authorization.
And if they are going to get authorizations, their doctor's going to go, or their practitioner's going to go through pure hell. But let's hope that they spend enough time with you that it's thoroughly documented your need for it, because that's where it's going to hit the road. The rubber meets the road.
Don't be lazy when you go to your doctor and be keeping your medical journal for yourself and writing down what you do, because that's going to be the part that you do to keep your freedom strong.
That is exactly
good
right.
advice.
That is exactly right. It has to be thoroughly documented, especially for any practitioner that's writing more plants than the allowable amount. You can do that, but you got to have it just convincing. You got to be able to have that doctor sit in front of a jury and explain, looking at your diary, of your pain, of your usage, of your grow, of your failure rates of grow. Everything needs to be detailed to the nth degree. The devil's in the details. And believe you me, years ago when I used to go with the CDC from every municipality around here for 150 to 200 miles to sit on the front row on these medical cannabis patients that were facing this, I'm telling you what, it is the devil's in the details. That's the only thing that would get them out of trouble is when somebody goes in there and says, look, this is well documented. That's the only way you're going to get out of trouble.
And why should anybody other than the patient and you have access to those records?
Exactly.
Good question.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully, that being said, you know, they're obviously tightening up on things, and it's hard to say you better have the proof to be a qualified patient because there are a lot of debilitating ailments and illnesses that are not recognizable. PTSD, how obvious is that? Well, not everybody who suffers from PTSD, it's obvious. It's a little bit easier to see a physical change, but after those 30 recommendations, the doctor goes on a list. Another thing that is changing is patient count of plants per household is now limited to 15 plants per single housing unit. So that dramatically drops the number of plant count down from collective gardens at this point until their new collective system goes into place. So plant count down. Let's see what else. Oh yes, butane extracts. No more butane extracts. So as of today, processing butane is a Class C felony, I believe. So none of that is allowed without proper licensing through the Liquor Control Board.
A felony.
That's ridiculous. I wonder how many licensed producers of BHO there are under 502.
I'm not.
No, there are some. I've seen them at 502 stores.
We'll ask.
It doesn't cover CO2, does it? Just butane extract?
Butane.
Anything explosive is what they were talking about, as far as I understand it. So anything that they do the process that could possibly explode.
So that doesn't touch CO2?
No, it doesn't touch CO2, and it doesn't touch alcohol specifically. I believe. I just left somebody that's in that process, and they allow them to do like 190 proof extraction. But the other part was all the hype everybody over, you know, it's going to blow up, and silly folks that did do silly things like that.
Can you possess it? You just can't purchase it or process it? Is that what the deal was?
Well, they didn't get that specific. They got pretty specific about not producing it and processing it. So if you have it, they didn't go into specifications. I still believe you probably have an affirmative defense at this point in time, but you know.
Rumor has it that some stockpiling went on in certain quarters.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't blame them. Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it. So what we are here to introduce today is the beginning of the Viper Pack. So we are a group of activists in the state of Washington where medical cannabis is very, very dear to our hearts, as I'm sure it is to all of yours. We want to make sure that during this process, during any legislation that's going through, that they know that there is a true voice of patients. I am a patient. There's a lot of other patients out there that might not be obvious to you that they're patients, but we're here to make sure that we have a compassionate cannabis use model for everyone in the state of Washington, where science and research without political or corporate bias is involved in the decision making, where we have the right to cultivate as adults in our house based on doctor recommendations if need be, because your relationship with your physician should supersede by right any of these man-made laws so far. Also, we want to make sure that we can still share medicine under a collective garden model at some point in time. They've restricted that. So you're no longer allowed to share between patients in their model. So, yeah, and that makes it extremely difficult for people who need medicine, who are too ill to make it themselves, get a hold of it.
What were they thinking?
They weren't.
They were thinking some people in the other part of the state grew some really bad pot and didn't want to take responsibility for their actions, so they hired some lobbyists to change the law so that you have to buy their bad pot, and now they're going to charge you taxes for it.
Yeah.
That's what they were thinking.
Thank you.
So and that's what I can make of it. I mean, I'm a simple man.
I'm seeing pretty much the same picture you are, sir.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, I'm going to welcome up Gil Mobley. He just spoke a second ago. He's an expert on all of this. So,
Dr. Gil.
I don't know about an expert. Much of what I get, I learn from you folks, especially I see Steve Elliott here. Thanks, Steve, for everything you do. Thanks for Viper, the Viper Political Action Committee. Way to go. I want to be big wind in their sail. That's why I was able to come out here this weekend. I've been a friend with Brian Stone and many other board members for years through the old CDC type place. I'm telling you, Viper is not going to embarrass you. They're going to be wind in our sails as patients and patient advocates. Modern medicine has finally reached a tipping point to where the medical utility of cannabis can no longer be denied. It stops seizures that other medicines can't touch. It's a strong antiemetic. It stops you from being nauseated, gives you the munchies, and it's a potent anti-inflammatory, meaning it stops the inflammation. It's fire on pain without the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory pill side effects. Hit the liver, hit the kidney, could get you pretty bad, and even the stomach, eat a hole. We know that. Amazing uses. And we're now learning the amazing pathways to which these work. Forever, people said, oh, marijuana solves cancer or treats cancer. Well, you know what? We've identified the same pathway in the #1 anti-cancer drug that's in cannabinoids. And you know what? As far as gabapentin, a potent neuroleptic medicine that stops the neurotransmission of pain in the brain, that pathway's in cannabinoids as well. Modern medicine is past the point where there's beyond any doubt at all. And as we also have learned that as a medical doctor licensed in this state, we've got to be careful authorizing it. You heard some of the horror stories. Nurse practitioners have lost their licenses with them doing some impropriety as far as their recommendations. But as a medical doctor licensed in this state, I've had the opportunity to recommend a few infrequent medical cannabis patients for use of medical cannabis that are justified and covered under the state law. And they have to meet 4 standards for me to recommend the cannabis. It has to work better than anything else that they've tried, and that needs to be documented in the records. It can be thrown out of court since the Fry case 6 years ago if it's not well documented. It needs to be failure on everything else needs to be well documented. The fact that cannabis works better than anything else. Number 2, the patient needs to do it in a manner that does not harm the body. This means vaping and not smoking. Products of combustion are bad on the lungs. It may not cause cancer. It appears it may retard or slow the progression of cancer even, maybe even treat it, may be preventive. But it's a bad idea. So number 2 is, do it in a manner that doesn't harm the body. The third requirement I have before starting a patient or authorizing them to use medical cannabis is that they tolerate the side effects, whether it's the forgetfulness or the paranoia or the munchies, or maybe that's the benefit from it. Or if it lifts them out of the funk that they're in because they think of things they don't normally think about, connect dots that may not necessarily need to be connected. It takes their mind somewhere else. That's why it's more useful for PTSD, by the way. But that's the third thing is they tolerate the side effects. And the fourth and final thing is they know what's in their medicine and what is not in their medicine.
Yeah.
Woo. The reoccurring theme to these four basic tenets that I have to recommending medical cannabis is the number one rule of medicine, and that's first, do no harm. Today I'm here to explain how the state, specifically the elected officials here behind us, have been derelict in their duty, protecting the patients in the rush to pass Senate Bill 5052, the Patient Protection Bill. You talk about a misnomer. The officials behind us have violated the first rule of medicine, and they've lied, or worse, were misled by the LCB, the Liquor Control Board. Oh, Liquor and Cannabis Control Board. How? Specifically, I will call out Senator Rivers. Call out Senator Rivers in her effort to roll medical cannabis into the recreational market. She repetitively said that the state's marijuana is tested and safe, and medical is not. I took her to case on that, and you can look this up in the Seattle Times. Evan Bush followed me around for several days as we collected samples from a couple of different dispensaries in town and took it to 6 different labs in the Pacific Northwest. 5 of them were 502 labs to see if they really are testing. Are they consistent? Are anybody monitoring the labs? And this is what we found. Remember, 250 pesticides are authorized to use on cannabis in this state, but there is not one approved lab in this state that can test for cannabinoids. Excuse me, there's not one lab in the state that can test for pesticides, yet 250 or more are allowed to be used. When the same concentrates were analyzed, we took some concentrates and we made sure it was homogenized, the same lot number, the same package, and we took it to 6 different labs. The same concentrates were analyzed at these 6 different labs, found these poisonous solvents. And by the way, none of the labs that found the 6, one lab found 1, another one found B, another one found C, another one found D, and another one found E, but none of the other labs found the other solvents. They were alkane, butane, methanol, isopropanol, and even acetone. Above the threshold levels is what's in the concentrates at the 502 stores, and Evan Bush, the Seattle Times, has that well documented. That same concentrate that was 100% homogenized and represented of having a certain THC level, when we took it to 5 different 502 stores in the Seattle area, had a 500% variance in the Delta 9 THC level. One lab said it had 9% by weight, another lab said 45% by weight. Wow. Now, when we first started this little sting study to prove that Senator Rivers is lying, Evan Bush wanted to make sure that we were doing everything, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And he asked what degree of error would be acceptable, Gil, between one lab and another. I said 5, maybe 10%. Give them 10%, okay? They're new, it's a steep learning curve. No one's been doing this a year. 500% is the percent increase between 9 and 45, my friends. And this is a problem because on medical cannabis patients, we've learned, and Sanjay Gupta has documented this well, that there's an entourage effect, a synergistic effect where the things work together. That's why CBD-only bills don't work, because now we're realizing that you need a little bit of THC to get that full benefit, okay? And we're finding out that a CBD to THC ratio of 5 to 1 is the minimum that will do this synergistic, this entourage effect. Yet CBD bills like what passed in Missouri was passed in conservative states in the South, Alabama particularly, they are a joke. It's just a political band-aid to soothe the cannabis. People think they're doing something when it's a joke, and it's counter to productivity and for patients' benefit. Some of the samples, some of the labs found mold in the very same homogenized sample that others found none. Well, let me digress to emphasize that cannabis can't be washed to pesticides like your apples and celery. It can't be washed for pesticides, and it can't be washed from anything as far as the heavy metals and other things that they put in it. And let me remind you that when you inhale spores from molds, they're inhaled to a warm, moist, spongy environment with somebody with immune-compromised diseases, whether it's HIV or chemotherapy. That's going to grow just like it does on bread. And HIV patients can die from bread mold. You know, it's reprehensible that they are not testing the labs or testing the cannabis. The labs are testing the stuff, but no one's testing the labs. When I called a PhD that owns a lab here in town, I asked her, you know, I'm going to do this study, and she said, oh, Gil, the results will be all over the board. Well, she's right. That was my hypothesis. And she is right. The results are all over the board. Yes, Central River says it's tested and safe. Yeah. You think a 500% variance is adequate? No.
Hey, they paid her good money to say that.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
I've had labs offer to fix results for us if they didn't come out the way that we wanted them.
Well, I suspect that's why some labs are really getting the business that report 45% by weight Delta 9 THC when the real level is 12.
Wonder how much that 45% result cost you.
There's no doubt, right? So, you know, after making probably $40 to $50 million to this point, right now in this year or even more, the state still can't test for pesticides. They're still not monitoring the labs, and they still can't tell medical cannabis that their stuff is safe because it isn't till proven otherwise. Got a couple more points, and then we'll sum it up. Now, briefly, I talked a few points about the intimidation that 502 docs will undergo, and I'm telling you, Medical Quality Assurance Commission, you seemingly have two camps. The MDs are pretty acceptable. They can't argue with that. But the DOs, you know, there's two wings to MQAP. The DOs are, hell no, we're not going to authorize any more things. And it's just a difference in black and white. And I'm telling you, no one's going to want to be drawn before that to have a chart review when they do over 30 medical cannabis patient authorizations in a month. They're absolutely crazy. It's an unpleasant system. So I think there'll be a huge need for any doctors that want to do these. I guess my last point would be that let me go through them here. I've spoken to state legislatures all around the country, Missouri, been invited to Nebraska, Colorado, and they figured it out in Colorado. Everything from the DUI issue to the home grows to the pesticide. You know, they've recently confiscated $1 million worth of cannabis plants because of pesticide exposure. They need to do that here, I'm telling you. And when I go to these states, I explain to them whether it's recreational or medical that you're looking at. There's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. The right way is to do it the way Colorado did it. If you want to learn the hard way, if you want to do the wrong thing, if you want to start a war on patients, if you want to get some unsafe stuff out there, follow the LCB's role in Washington. It's absolutely a disgrace, and you're learning the hard way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Steve asked some medical cannabis activists for some predictions over the next 5 years what's going to happen in this state. Or nationally with cannabis. I think it's going to be a long, circuitous, tortuous route to rescheduling it, but I'll tell you one thing that's going to happen. These people are going to get their ass sued because of the mismanagement Delta One final point on the DUI thing. You know, I started the pack on no on I-502 solely. I believe medical marijuana should be legal. I believe that recreational should be legal. But I oppose it solely on the 502 thing, but the DUI. We said that it's going to imply impairment when there is none. We didn't have the research back then, but since that time, Marilyn Hustis at NIDA has come out with a study, her understudy, Natalie DeSorias, came out with a study. NIDA, produced by our government, says that at the 5 nanogram cutoff for active THC in the blood, at the 5 nanogram cutoff, that nearly 18% of regular cannabis daily users will be positive for DUI at 5 nanograms 3 days into total abstinence.
Right.
Wow.
Nobody's going to tell a seasoned user they're very impaired any more than sleep apnea would or listen to the radio after 3 minutes of smoking, let alone 3 hours, let alone 3 days. We knew this back then. We got no traction in the papers at all because they were all, you know, pro-legalization. We know this now, and still the Seattle Times is putting this under the rug. But I'm telling you, we need to change that. Colorado, again, they've got it figured out. They have a 5 nanogram, but they also have but you can submit other evidence to prove that levels over that may not be implying impairment because your carboxy THC is so high, the metabolite, that they're saying, oh, this guy's probably not even impaired at 30, let alone 5, because the ratio implies they're a chronic user and will have tolerance there. Just like if I were to take a drag on a cigarette, I would have to sit down with just one drag. It would knock me flat. If I did 2 drags, I would be vomiting in a toilet. So nicotine would be majorly impairing to a novice user. Similarly, under the 5 nanogram level, a novice user can be impaired at 3 nanograms, just as nicotine drops me down. And you have a tolerance. Somebody over here is a chain smoker going non-stop, there he is, raising his hand down there. That's why, we must understand. That's why cannabinologists need to understand that some patients can function just fine on 140 nanograms. Case in point, and more hands were raised.
Yeah.
Okay, case in point, Allison Bigelow. The Seattle Weekly did an article 3 years ago. Her level was 140, and she was stone cold sober as I am right here. Her reflexes, her recall, her spelling backwards, the 5-letter words, and serial 7s back from 100. As fast as the cop in the room, as fast as the reporter, as fast as the medical examining doctor did a neurological exam on her. So I'm telling you, there is a lot.
That's because she was medicated, not stoned.
That's exactly right, and
Yeah.
appropriately medicated. So I just, in closing, want to salute the patients that are here today. I'm happy that you're here, and thanks for being wind in our sail. I want to salute the Viper PAC for bringing us together like this. And lastly, I want to call attention to this sign right over here. This sums it up. I saw it hanging up on it. Can someone bring that sign to me, please? I saw it being unused next to this car down here, and it says, "Patient over profits." But let's quit kidding ourselves. We know what's going on in this state building. It's profits over patients. Thanks for letting me be here. I hope to be winning your sale.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Pretty sure 80% of Washington isn't a novice user. but anyways, so 5052 was supposedly the Patient Protection Act, by their words, not ours. And then 2136 was their fixer bill to how horrendous the effects of 5052 were going to be on the community. So we're going to hear right now from a patient within the community who's going to share their thoughts on it. This is Jessamine Way. Thank you.
Okay. So, I'm gonna kind of read to you because I get a little. But my name is Jessamine, and in March of 2009, I was like 300 pounds, and a week after giving birth to my 4th child, I was diagnosed with a 10 by 7 inch tumor deep inside my brain, which I barely survived that. So I was left severely epileptic and having 15 to 20 petite and grand mal seizures a day. I was on 30 separate prescription medications to treat this. Then in 2012, I was diagnosed with an inoperable intrinsic brainstem glioma. I was going to die. And looking at all treatment options, I chose to do a diet and lifestyle change, and I went on to medical cannabis. It has been incredibly effective. As you see, I've lost 150 pounds. I compete in triathlons now.
Wow.
I've never done that in my entire life. The greatest thing to me now is I was never ever able to play with my children. I was just always in bed sick. And now, I mean, we ride bikes, we go swimming, we go camping. It's just amazing. I'm now off of all of those medications too. So it's been a major change in my life. It continues to treat my illness on a daily basis. I am severely epileptic without it. And they've offered me all kinds of brain surgeries to treat it and all kinds of prescriptions, and I personally don't want to get my head cut into again. That was absolutely horrific. So it took me 5 years, you know, to even get to be able to be speaking normally, and you know, so changing the number of plants my grower is allowed and forcing me to sign my name onto a list is unfair and an invasion of my privacy. Having my name on a medical marijuana list, I feel, is equal to being on a sex offenders list without having committed any crimes. The CBD, THC that I get from my grower, I know when that's made, I know where it comes from. I know what's in it. I am incredibly organic, healthy. I cannot have a drop of alcohol. I'm very square in that aspect. So I know where it comes from. I don't want to go to a store and get some other chemical which I know will set me off into epilepsyville. It just is not going to be fun. So also, my primary physician does not want, will not want to sign that paper. And I will lose that, which will mess up everything. And honestly, it will force me to leave this state. And if I leave this state, I have to leave my children behind. And I really don't want to do that. So I just ask that all of us fight, because otherwise I leave my babies here and I don't get to see them that often. And it's not fair to all of us moms and all of us just normal people trying to just maintain our health and be, stable, normal, American human beings. So, it's getting that I get upset at that thought, but it's getting too close with all of this. So, anyways, I wish you all luck, and I want you all to know that this stuff works for a lot of us, and just a lot of us are kind of afraid to come forward for it. But if we all keep fighting, it's going to really make a difference and make a change in some of our lives, in most of our lives incredibly greatly. It's going to be wonderful. So, anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessamine. Our next speaker is Leland Cole, an international activist and one of the core members of the Viper Club.
Hello, I'm very, very happy to be here. I thank you for inviting me, and I wanted to add a few thoughts that I've been considering since '09 and discussing with activists throughout the world. This isn't an attack on recreational use laws here or anywhere else, but it is a way of putting it all into context. Marijuana aside, and our Constitution in this state aside, common law throughout the Western world provides that patients, citizen patients, have a right to search out, to aspire to find superior, effective relief for their conditions. And this legalistic term, it is a legalistic term, superior, effective relief, its definition is cure of your condition and or relief of all of its symptoms. So while you don't have a guarantee under common law of getting cure or relief of all of your conditions, you do have a guarantee not to be inhibited in aspiring and searching for such kind of relief or cure. Now, the mathematical probabilities in regards to cannabis and your condition of finding a final match that gives you superior effective relief happens to be very good, because there, if you are a certified patient allowed to grow or designate someone to do so, you have well over 15,000 different seeds in the world to choose from. On the other hand, using the same mathematical probability, you probably will have a few hundred choices in a rec environment. The mathematics are clear. At 15,000, whatever your condition may be, you have a very, very good chance of finding superior effective relief in a number of harvests, say over a 2 or 3 year period. The average patient can find a final match. But again, the same mathematical probability at 800 strains or 1,000 strain choice is that many patients will not get a match. And the elephant in the room is that all recreational shops are supplied by big grows, which are themselves strain limiting enterprises. The problem, therefore, is clear. When your rights to cultivate are taken from you or to designate others, you have less choice of strain. When you have less choice of strain, there's a less possibility of you executing your right in the search for superior effective relief. In other words, some marijuana, or even all marijuana, may give most everyone some kind of relief, but the guarantee is, in common law, is that you should be uninhibited in your search for superior effective relief, for cure and or relief of all symptoms. And the law here, the recreational law here, and the additional statutes forcing you to fold in your medical marijuana activities into a rec shop where you now have to go and choose from a limited number, it's simply intolerable. It's illogical. It's unscientific. So you have to ask yourself the question, how did these politicians come to such a position? They themselves are well aware of common law. So what is it they're not getting? What they're not getting is cannabis science. They don't have a clue about the real science. And I must say that those that have promoted them to write these laws, these recreational use laws, are people from our community that in fact do know about cannabis science but aren't telling. And that's how it's done. If the politicians are forced to face the facts, the scientific facts, and look at the mathematical probabilities of a few hundred choices versus 10,000+, they will then come to understand that common law is in violation. In some places like Canada, it's their very constitution that is taken into violation. So this is the approach where you can actually change again these laws to be more just. Simply having a hollow win somewhere using a different approach wouldn't be good enough. For instance, just recently the Canadians have won a battle in the Supreme Court. Our patient community up there can now have extracts. What's wrong with this decision is that the government there contracted with a big grow a few months before the Supreme Court ruled that if indeed the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the patients, that this big grow would make the oil, not the patients. So even though their lawyer won, it's a hollow win. What we need is a real win. And a real win is an argument that cannot be refuted or undone. And the fact is, our best protection is cannabis science, which shows clearly the way to have a wide selection where in a few years, or if you're lucky, even quicker, you find superior effective relief in a proper match, is for the patient and or patient designate to choose among thousands of choices worldwide until they find the right strain for themselves, the right mixed strain. This cannot be done in a rec shop, for as I say, rec shops are supplied by big grows, and by definition, big grows are strain limiting operations. Say for instance, with no consistent quality. Say for instance, you have diabetes type 2. Now we know there's a strain from Colombia that completely suppresses it. There's another strain from Thailand that's equally as good. The problem with these strains, they take a long time to grow and they don't give you much weight. But a patient that wants superior effective relief, you know, they're going to put up with that long time. Yeah. They're going to put up with the fact that there's not much weight. A big grow won't. You'll never see that strain in a big grow. No. And if you don't see it in a big grow, you won't see it in a rec shop. Nope. So if all that's left are rec shops, what is the medical patient to do that needs that strain? Go die? Yeah. use some other strain that's not as effective, have to use more and more of it, and still not get the superior effective relief that the law requires under common law? So this is the point that we have to bring across. It isn't as though the politicians don't know about common law. What they don't know about is cannabis science. And those that pass laws that are abusive to patients and that absorb the patient community, they do know, but they're not telling. So it's our job to see to it that we are protected the greatest way possible. And that is by using our own cannabis science in court if necessary, where we actually show all these choices, the mathematical probabilities of finding a good match under the two environments. It is ludicrous to send medical patients to an establishment where they have less choice in a process of finding a proper match to their condition. And that's what this state has done to us. I thank you all.
Thank you, Leland.
Thank you. Next up to speak is going to be Rowan Wilson. She is also another core member of the Viper Club. So come on up.
Speaking to you today as a patient as well as a business owner, and I did not continue the path for osteopathic medicine. I want to give you just a brief overview, and also for the cameras, what is happening right now in public health. We have a return to the black market. It's been going on since May when these folks decided to mess with our medicine. And it is our medicine. Let me tell you about a shop owner who told me on Wednesday of one of her patients who asked, "What do I do if you guys close? I don't want to go on a list like Germany pre-World War II. I don't want to send my grandson. I don't want to send my grandson to the streets to get medicine for me. Who are your vendors? Who are your people? How do I get my medicine? Do you think anybody on the street is testing at any of these labs? No. And do any of these labs have any various basic standards? Not all the same. I can vouch, calling off of the 502 list by one of our board members, one of these labs offered to fix the test results for us. Yes. We've got to stick together in this fight. Each and every one of us share our information, and this has to get out there. This is real medicine for real people. Because if you don't think that they're not coming after your medicine now, wait till they come after this gentleman because they don't like the fact that he's taking too much niacin. Wait till they go after this lady who probably is on vitamin D, as 30% of seniors are vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D can kill you if you take too much. Cannabis cannot. It's non-toxic. Thank you for coming out today.
Next up, we've got Kurt Ledden, officer of the Viper Club.
Hi, my name is Kirk Ludden. I speak to you first as a qualifying patient, although as of today that is objectively obsessed. I am HIV positive over 11 years. I am part of HIV vaccination part 2 for over 6. They have diagnosed me as a wild type non-progressor. Why? Because I don't have the gene, nor do I produce the amino acid that protects an individual from HIV, hence wild type. I say it's because of cannabis. I started recreational use in 18. By the time I was 30, I was doing it more medicinally, self-medicinally for stress related to work, life, and everything. Test studies are now showing THC controls the virus in monkeys. The endocannabinoid system is coming out and shows that when you have an enriched endocannabinoid system, you have a superior immune system. I am begging for the day and have been going in every day saying Fred Hutch needs to start this research, and I will be one of the first to join up. As of today, I will now be a criminal if I choose to use the amount of medicine that I need because they decided to legislate my health care choice between my practitioner and myself.
And tax you on it.
Yes, so now the THC that is helping control my virus, I will now have to pay a 37% tax on an inferior product that could contain a pesticide that could throw the entire system off.
Right.
Now I speak to you as a sponsor and executive director of 1372, which I seriously am greatly appreciative of the volunteers and the work they did. They did nothing short of an amazing job. In April, when this started getting talked about, when 5052 was becoming more of a reality, I had about 900 signatures. By the middle of May, I had 9,000 signatures. By July 2nd, I had 26,766 signatures. In addition to that, there were 321 signatures either on an 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17 with no back, or an 11 by 17 with 2 signatures. We also had a volunteer say, hey, we're talking about medical cannabis patients. Some of them are homebound. Some of them don't have the resources to print a petition or get to a petition to sign it. Set up an online petition with an additional 60 signatures to this initiative. Since the end date of July 2nd, I have received an additional 475 signatures. I now not only speak for myself, I speak for 27,622 people who want a compassionate use model in this state. Not only am I the executive director of the Vipers Club, I have done something I thought I would never do. I have registered as a lobbyist. I am a volunteer lobbyist for the organization and the PAC, and these people are not going to be able to ignore us anymore.
Get amongst
Thank
it,
you.
brother! Get amongst it!
All right. Next, we'll hear from Brian Stone, one of the officers. There you are.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. You know, I look out here and I see some of the most dedicated people in our community, and I really acknowledge you and thank you. And I got to tell you, I'm really proud to be a member of this group. I'm just blown away by the people that have come together to once again take up this fight. People like Arthur West, who strikes fear every time his name goes out to an email to a city, or the Liquor Control Board knows him real well. Or John Novak, who founded 420 Leaks and has done such a diligent job in making sure we have records to show what's really going on. These are resources we haven't had to this degree in a long time. People like Stephanie Viskovich, an early pioneer who helped formulate the reality that we just lost, that we need back. People like Chris Bornstead, also again a firebrand speaker on behalf of patients. People like Dr. Gil Mobley, who will be on our executive committee and advise us. And I'm sure if we ask Mr. Steve Elliott, he will be happy to lend his support as well.
You know it.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you. Young, fresh minds like Hugh Newmark, who is coming with fresh ideas, because we represent all generations, all levels of patient need. People like Mark Remener, who has been so instrumental in supporting some of our members and forming the underpinnings of what we are trying to do. Because I don't think there's been a PAC out there yet. There have been a lot of organizations and stuff. I've been involved in many of them, as have many of you. This is the first time people have said, no, we're going to actually just take this one more level. We're going to get organized. We're going to have a PAC. We're going to have some meaning, and we're going to represent patients rather than business. Who didn't I include? I think, and then of course Kirk Luden, who has been so great in with his petition, and again showing the state how many people are out there. And I can never forget the tireless Gina Garcia, who has traveled up and down this state, spreading the word on her own dime to the point of exhaustion. I've never seen anybody like that. So you know, I got to tell you, it all sounds good, but we really need you. Now, you obviously know that, and I pretty much can count on all of your support. I'm betting. But, you know, I actually going to ask you more. I'm going to ask you not only to give us your support with the small s. Some of you are going to give us money, and we appreciate that because we're going to need some of that. But I need your love. I know I've got most of your love anyway, but I need your love for the fight that goes on. Because without love, we're not going to do it. Because, you know, we need to be tough, we need to be strong, but we need to be focused. We need not to be nasty and kick the people we're trying to convince. It's all subtle, guys, and I know that we can get that fine tuning if we work together. Because that's what we need. We need all of us, again, coming together, working together. And again, we just, you know, to overstate it, we need evangelists at this point. Because I tell you, I think this is our last chance. I mean, I've been in this battle and we won and we lost some, but now it's like last session totally showed us, you know, how far back they want to roll us. And a lot of it is our fault. Let's face it. We were extremely divided last year. Nobody knew what was going on. And it just took a couple of well-paid lobbyists, man. They rolled right over us. And where we used to have a forum and a say, we really lost it. So, you know, this year, maybe our last chance this next session. I know there's people in there willing to listen. My own senator called and said, you know, we can still change this next session. You know, that was very small, but, you know, he was complicit in, you know, what they did to us. But it's still a door open, and there are many doors open, but it's gonna take all of us. Beyond that, I gotta say that's only the start. I know for me, in the years that I've tried to get people to care about this all, it wasn't just you or you, but it was your mom and dad, your uncle, somebody else you talked to. We take our number and we talk to 10 people, we increase that. Because it's not just about being a working member, it's about just spreading the knowledge. Because if you just talk to 2 people, I mean, you know, what they read in the paper makes it sound like everything's hunky-dory. Hey, we got legal pot. We know it's not. So it's up to every one of us to educate our circles of people. Keep track of who's out there. Some of them will come aboard, be more active, especially if they're cannabis patients. So this coming session, we're going to need everybody down here. We're going to need everybody calling, everybody involved. We're going to need a huge increase in numbers. So please join us. There's various ways you can support us. We have a very strong Facebook presence. We have a page that'll keep you updated. 420 Leaks will highlight all kinds of records that we've been pulling down. Please support that, go to that. You can become involved as a core member. We have a system set up that every month you can automatically go $10 to the Vipers Pack if you so wish. That's great. We have how many members, John, doing that now? 14 people who have committed to spend $10 a month. What is that? 2 Starbucks coffees to make sure that this effort goes on.
We got 15 here.
Thank you. We're going to have some awesome events coming up that you will be able, again, to create some excitement around this, to bring your friends. I'm going to let Gina talk about a wonderful event that she is planning, but it's kind of like a great, I didn't steal your, no, I'm not.
Still in the works.
Okay, well, there are many great projects in the works. And so just please be aware of those coming up. Tune into our website, become informed, you know, start taking the stand. You know, I think that's all I can say. Oh, maybe one last thing, because many of you are veterans. I promise we won't embarrass you. I won't say anything more than that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Gina Garcia is one of our founding board members. She is the secretary. She took on that title very willingly, amongst the guys. She gave us a hard time over that. She's accepted it willingly. She's one of the hardest working advocates I've ever come across. Amen. Gina Garcia.
Hi everybody, thank you. Yeah, there is a lot of stuff in the works. I haven't finalized anything, so I don't want to really talk about it, but it's coming soon, and it's a lot of laughs, and it's going to be a lot of fun, so keep your ears open. It's all going to be to benefit medical. Whatever we do is going to be that way, so there's no question about that. So I will notify you all when those events are ready, and in the meantime, we have John Novak here, who's also an officer and the treasurer, and we'll let him take it. I'm not much of a speaker, but thank you anyway.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for coming out. where we're at this moment with our organization has been a process that's been in the works for several years now. We've tried to get various people together to form an organization that truly represented the needs of the patients. And personality conflicts, various other things have happened over the years. I had to leave the state for about a year, but through all that time, we kept an idea of where we wanted to go with it. Basically, we started a social welfare organization called the Vipers Pact. We're going to be filing for 501c4 status, and that will allow us to be sure and said, here you go, John, I have done my research. You are only the second patient that I've done this for. I probably won't do it again. And that was he was the lead through the public records process. Arthur West.
Thank you all for showing up here in the rain. I hope everyone else realizes just how badly the legislature screwed patients. Back when we first saw 502 circulating, well, when we managed to read 502 and find out what was in it, a bunch of us figured out we'd be here on the steps talking about some screwed up law the legislature would pass if 502 went through. The reason we're at this particular place with medical marijuana is certain people, and including many of our elected representatives, think there's more money to be made in a controlled marketplace than in free enterprise. I think they're wrong. I think free enterprise will always be a government-controlled marketplace. Unfortunately, here in Washington, the powers that be and some very high-paid lobbyists conspired together to make it so that the recreational model is coming up and the medical model is being completely thrown away. To a certain extent, they're making it harder for patients to get authorizations. They're toughening laws. They're making it very difficult for doctors to grant authorizations. Basically, they're attacking the right to grow and use your own medicine on every possible level, and they're doing it as insidious.
Well, I understood that too, but the fact that he wanted to in the beginning, I also understand. My point is, though,
being able to have, say, somebody in Arkansas can effectively do that. They should be able to visit our website and get it to that patient in Alabama,
oh, of course,
Canada,
of
or
course.
wherever, because of your economic needs.
Well, the point that I'm getting at is this. Because there's less strain availability for recreational facilities, what you end up with is a situation that's antithetical to medical business availability of strain. So they want to fold all these medical patients into wet shops. What about the fact that it's antithetical to medical marijuana? They won't be able to get proper MAD. They won't be able to get superior effective relief. Well, that's the thing I was trying to get across here. Is there's a lot of things that are unlawful. But, for instance, in the Canadian case, they just won the right to have extracts.
I met Owen Smith on Sunday.
But listen.
From 2009.
I want them to listen to the rub. But my point is, it just came out. I'm trying to, you have a situation where you have, but the point is, you won as a patient group, but your win is hollow.